somewhere along the line, the whole mindset changed, because I went through quite an identity crisis, not with the Irish culture or not wanting to be Irish or whatever, but just of where I actually fit in, because I didn't sound the way that I should, because I didn't act the way that I should.
Díomh agus fáilte Ash. You're all very welcome to another episode of Irish in Toronto. Today I'll be speaking with Colleen Corbett. Any Irish person who has moved to Toronto is sure to have encountered the famous Colleen at some stage. She brings energy and enthusiasm to any conversation she is in, and this is no exception. Colleen's mother, the equally famous Maureen Mulvey O'Leary, winner of the 2024 Irish Person of the Year Award, was a previous guest on this podcast. Colleen talks about how her mother raised her as Irish in Toronto, attending Irish cultural events in the city and travelling around the North American continent to various Comhaltas events. Colleen discusses how St. Patrick's Day is like Christmas for her, and she also discusses how it feels to be on the other side as Irish people begin to move back home, after having formed close bonds with people here in Toronto. Colleen's experiences as Irish growing up in Toronto is unique, and she is currently chronicling these experiences in a novel she is writing. We discuss the ups and downs of creative writing and how she came to lose her original manuscript. I would still encourage people to download the episodes and to share them with friends and family. Downloads are the easiest indicator for me to gauge how many people I'm reaching with these conversations, so I would really appreciate it. I begin our chat by asking Colleen about how she became Irish in Toronto.
I was born here, despite the ridiculous accent. And then people think that the accent is put on, and I tried to spend like most of my 20s being like, do you know how difficult it is to have to explain why I don't sound the way that I should sound at the start of every conversation. But I was raised in the Irish community over here. And so there was a place, and it was my home away from home. It's still one of my most favourite places, the Old Irish Centre. I'm sure, you know, you've heard loads about it in all the time, but it was an amazing place. It had this phenomenal theatre, and there was 2 pubs upstairs and downstairs. So they had a big massive hall whenever they were doing like dinner dances and GAA benefits and county nights and all the rest. Mum was there all the time when she wasn't teaching dancing or heading up some organisation or being a part of some committee. She was just volunteering. And so I learned how to pull pints of Guinness behind the bar because I couldn't be trusted as a small child. So somebody had to be kind of keeping an eye on me. So I was put behind the bar, and they had a little rolly stool that would go from one side to the next, and I learned how to pull pints of Guinness at 4.
Wow.
And apparently, according to some of the local drinking people, I was very good at pulling pints when I was 4 years old. But so, you know, there was places like that, and so I was just constantly surrounded by accents and people and all the rest. And so then whenever we would be able to, Mum would be able to gather up enough money, we'd go back to Ireland, and we'd stay for as long as we could with schooling and, you know, work and whatever else. And how she managed to get me back as often as she did, as a single stressed out mum of a very high energy child, especially as an adult, I just can't figure out how she was able to do it. But we got back as often as we could, and her phone bills must have been outrageous because we were on the phone to Ireland all the time. So it was just a constant stream of accents. Although when I was a kid, I didn't have an Irish accent. I had a very Canadian accent, and it just sort of morphed over the years. Although there was always words that I said kind of not Canadian. And Mum used to do kind of like what you're doing, just taping, like asking me questions and talking right from I learned how to talk. And there was a couple of ones, and it would be like, Mommy took me for a ride in the whatever, like to the park. And they were like, oh yeah, and how did you get there? In a stroller. And it was just this like weird, not Canadian, not fully Irish kind of an accent. So there was always a touch of something off in the accent. And now it's just living with Corbett. I have no hope of ever going back to any kind of normal Canadian sound. But it's...
You hang around with Irish all the time.
Continuously, yeah. Even whenever I'm writing, most of my writing revolves around like Irish people and Irish Toronto, shall we say. So it's the only place really. I was kind of too Canadian to be fully Irish, but I was too Irish to be Canadian. So there was this like vortex of just Toronto that all of this madness embodied in one person made sense, and everyone was like, yeah, no, that's grand, that's 100%. Like, the parade is your own personal Christmas. Like, that's fine. That makes total sense. But like, it really doesn't. But you know, all these things and traditions that mightn't be a big deal to other people, they just mean the world to me.
Yeah. Was this, like, for some people, for some second generation kids, they might fall out of love with it and come back into it as an adult? It seems like it's always been the case for you as a child. You never fell out of love with being Irish.
No. And I, as a kid, if anyone had ever asked me, like, are you going to grow up and live in Canada? Like, there was no way. There was no hope. The minute I was able to go, I was gone. And somewhere along the line, the whole mindset changed, because I went through quite an identity crisis, not with the Irish culture or not want to be Irish or whatever, but just of where I actually fit in, because I didn't sound the way that I should, because I didn't act the way that I should, because it was just this weird, and it's a big city, but it's a small community and everybody knows everybody. So it's like, picture whatever small little Irish village you're in times a million. And word gets back. I mean, I was in pubs listening to stories about me, to me, that they didn't know were about me. Do you know, these kinds of stuff? And like, it hurts at the time, especially when you're a little bit more on the wild side of things. And so a lot of the stories were a little bit, oh my God, you'll never hear what this one did. And I was like, it's not exactly how it happened. But it made headlines, you know. I was in the gossip mill an awful lot of the time, but I did go through a massive, I don't know where I want to be. I don't know where I belong. I don't fit in. I wasn't totally happy within my own self, you know, and trying to be what people wanted me to be, but not be too much, but also be enough that I was still entertaining. Because if I wasn't entertaining, what was I? If I wasn't, you know, if I wasn't making the rumor mill and then like, I wasn't a part of anything then, you know. That was my whole shtick. So I think after I kind of got myself over that and sort of settled into who I am, and like, I'm a lot to take, and I know that, and you're either going to like that about me and we'll get on really great, or you won't, and we won't, and that's fine too. I don't love everybody, you know, everybody doesn't have to love me, but it took me a really, really long time to settle just in my own self. And once I did, I think I settled with Toronto, and I settled with an awful lot of these other things that I struggled with for as long as I could remember. I have to live in Ireland because that's, you know, that was the pinnacle of all the Irish stuff that we did. And then, you know, all the stuff that my mother did with the summer camps and starting the Na Piarsaigh Club with the Camogie girls, and doing, you know, just being involved in all these different things that rooted me in the place that I've always been born and raised, always belonged in, but also sort of struggled with. It was, so now we're so happy here, you know, and the thoughts of leaving just...
You couldn't imagine going to Ireland now?
I couldn't imagine it, you know. And I love going back, and it's, you know, it's quiet and it's lovely and it's fun and it's full of people and it's meeting up with people all the time, and you're exhausted coming back, but in the best way. And, you know, your heart's so full, your head's so full, everything's great. You have all these memories, all these amazing pictures, but there's nothing like kind of coming back here and getting into, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but getting into a routine, you know, the things that are normal and the things that are comforting now. And all the things that I was always afraid of as a kid, or that Mum used to punish me with, like, you're not allowed to go to that party, or you have to go to bed early, you have to eat all your vegetables. They've all become my goals in life now, you know, all these punishments. I know, 40 years old, it only took, you know, 4 decades to get there, but I do. I feel like settled and happy and kind of grown up, you know. But only in a very recent times as well. It's
nice though. I think your mother brought you back a lot, but she also brought you around North America to Comhaltas events. So you saw the whole continent, but through an Irish kind of prism as well. Yeah. What was that like?
Oh, it was amazing. Like, we'd come back from winter break, or we'd come back from, you know, the summer holidays, and people would be like, oh yeah, I like went to the park a lot, or I did these things, and I'd be like, I got to go to this place and that, I got to do this thing, we traveled to this country and that country. So I was really lucky, and Mum still has a bone of contention because it was just so normal. for us to be like, do you know what? I have a couple of gigs in the east coast of Canada. Pack up a little suitcase for yourself. We're going on a road trip. And I'd be like, all right, whatever. Trees and water in the car for days. This is so boring. Without ever realising that, like, this was... I was on these trips of a lifetime that it would take me a lifetime nearly to appreciate. And I used to be like, oh, this is so boring. Like, another road trip, another, like, can't we just, like, go to the park and be, you know? And so she used to be so fed up when I'd be like, she was like, this is not boring. You're getting to see the whole world. But no, it was incredible to be able to see all these places. And then as, like, an older kid, you know, 7, 8, 9 years old, I'd be talking to other people and they'd be like, I've never been on a plane. And it just shocked me. I was, what do you mean? What did you do? What did you do with your whole life then? If you weren't traveling back and forth, where were you, what were you doing? And it still shocks me when people are like, I've never been on a plane. How? Have you never been on a plane? Get on a plane. Yeah. This is bizarre. So yeah, it was incredible. And we got to meet people all over the place. Like, we can, like, anywhere that we're going, I can still kind of call up someone or send a message to someone, say, look, we're going to be in the, you know, Florida neighborhood. If you want to pop down, we're going to be at this place. Don't know how far away from you that is. And, you know, and so it's amazing to feel like you're connected almost to the whole world through organizations like Comhaltas and like the GAA, and it's just incredible.
It is. I remember your mother sat in that chair and she spoke to me about driving to Orlando or something for a weekend and driving back.
Oh, like, yeah, we drove down to San Antonio in Texas. That was quite the experience.
The second she left, I got Google Maps out and was trying to figure out how did she, and like, this is, you know, the roads weren't as good as they are now, and even simple things like podcasts to distract yourself. No, she probably just played trad music the whole way.
Yeah, trad music the whole way. And would fucking blare it like as loud as it could, because she'd want to be making sure she was staying awake, and as the driver I fully support her staying awake, and the alternative is not ideal, but so she'd be absolutely blasting tunes, but I can sleep through anything because of growing up again in the Irish community and at Cayley's and stuff. I fell asleep on speakers and the likes, and there's like photos of a little 2-3-year-old Colleen falling asleep on a speaker at the middle of this like North American convention concert, and it made like local newspapers in the Toronto Star being like, look at this child asleep on a speaker that is in use, like, and Mam still has it somewhere. I think she has every paper ever written about anything in the Irish community at all. She has little archives above in her place, but anyway, it was things like that, you know, were priceless. So I can sleep through that. Once I can get to sleep, I can sleep through pretty much anything. And so her blaring the tunes made no difference to me. It was my happy place, you know, back where it all began, kind of.
And how do you, I'm curious, because you grew up here, how have your Canadian kind of friends looked at you? Have you always been the Irish person to them? Or do you have a different identity with them sometimes?
Oh, I'd like my best friends now that have known me forever and ever, they've seen like the evolution, you know, of me being like a regular Irish background kid to being the very eccentric Irish representer that I currently am. But I'm more than that kind of to them, because they know the kind of insides and outsides, and you know, there's different stories, and so it kind of depends. Once it hits that, you know, late February, early March, I have the same representation to everybody, I'd say.
Talk about that, because people on the podcast are wondering, you mentioned the parade is like your Christmas day. If people met you that day, they think you should be on the 6-1 News in Ireland every St. Patrick's Day.
Oh my God, it's the best day. I love it. It's better than actual St. Patrick's Day, because on actual St. Patrick's Day, everybody has this notion of drinking, and the Irish culture is so much more than drink. It's so vast, and it's so rich, and it's so beautiful, and I think that St. Patrick's Day and the beauty of the culture gets lost an awful lot in drinking, which, yes, is a part of what we do, and it's a lot of, you know, the culture sort of revolves around that. You play tunes in the pub, you meet up to meet up with people in the pub, you have your, you know, sessions after matches in the pub, you do, like, a lot of stuff does revolve around it, but it's social things that happen to happen in pubs rather than like going out just for the sake of going out, you know. But that's the mindset that a lot of people have. Oh, I'm going out and getting hammered because it's an Irish day. Like that's
it's kind of a North American thing, that kind of
very
mindset, isn't it? Yeah.
So that particular day, like I enjoy it. I go out, we go up to McMurphy's, listen to tunes, see our friends, you know. It's like a regular Saturday type night. It's a lovely day, it's great fun, but it doesn't mean the same. But the parade day is when the people that are actually in the community, the people that care the same way that you care, that, you know the same people that are working behind the scenes throughout the whole year and finally get a chance to get together and celebrate and lift each other up and be like, I know it's hard when nobody comes out, but you know, we're in this together. We've got you. What are you doing now? Like, I'll help you to promote your stuff. You help me to promote my stuff. And so we're the actual like players of the community are together and getting to celebrate. And it's for me personally, it's the best day of the year. It's better than Christmas. It's better than my birthday. It's better than any other day. I look forward to it. Sean thinks I'm insane. I might be, but like I have my clothes all laid out like the week before, and the night before I'd be all excited. I can't sleep like a kid at Christmas. Like I legitimately be so excited I can't sleep.
And you often make your own clothes. For
yeah, I knit little booties every year.
That's a booty for someone who doesn't know what it is.
For little like slip covers for your shoes, and every year I knit new ones because I go through them. Marching in the parade. I've marched on canes, I've marched on crutches. I marched when I was supposed to be immobilised because I had dancing. Actually, at St. Mike's at U of T, we had a big ceilidh and I was showing them a move. And I didn't realise at the time, but my hip was slightly dislocated. And I cracked a joint in my hip, like showing them like a down and out and back to the before. And I knew whenever it cracked that something had happened. So they had like a brace sort of thing like on my hip, and I wasn't supposed to be moving. And I was like, well, I don't know how this is going to work because I have to march in the parade. They were like, well, why don't you sit in a car? In a car? Nobody can see me in a car. I can't go out and shake hands with the people. And they were like, you're not the president. I am the president. This is my day. I can't sit in a car. So me and my mother had massive ructions. I was probably about 19 or 20 years old, and nobody could talk to me if I could go back in time because I damaged myself so badly. But I waited and I stayed in the car, and not actually in the car the way that I was supposed to be. I was half out the car yelling and screaming about, oh, well, hello, like just living the dream. But then whenever we got to around the corner where the viewing stand was and where the tellies and the cameras and everything were there, I was like, I just couldn't sit in the car any longer. So I hopped out. I was like, and then because I was behind, because the car was behind all of us, I was then trying to like almost run to catch up. Worse idea than just getting out of the car. And so I ended up falling behind, and somebody in dressed up as a leprechaun with like a dolly. I don't know why they had dollies. I don't know what they were moving. I had to hop onto that, and they had to run me up and drop me off and deliver me to our group. And my mother was never so mad, but she couldn't show it because we were in front of all the cameras. So she was like, get into that car. And I was like, I will when the dancing is done. Just get into the car. So we had this smiley domestic so that nobody on the camera would know. But looking back on it, you could fairly easily tell that we weren't actually getting along despite our big smiles. So that's the kind of, it does something magical. It cures me for the one day. But I couldn't miss it.
Yeah.
It's I just think it's such an important day for people in the Irish community here to really just get together and celebrate all of the amazing facets, because the community itself is so big. The Toronto Irish Players put on incredible productions, like Comhaltas do all these sessions. There's ceilidhs that happen all over the place, and there's different people that are picking up the baton all the time, because it's really hard to keep things going and you can burn out whenever you're doing it all on your own. So, we've gone through different groups and different people, and I think that's amazing because everyone kind of sees how hard it is behind the scenes and what you need to do and how we can help each other. And then just kind of keep it going and be like, look, I'm getting tired. I don't know how much more I can do. Can somebody else step in? And it's, it's great. But there's so many different moving parts to it, and to see how well it all works together, and that for the 40 years that I've been alive anyway, that, there's never been a lag or being like, I don't know that this is going to be able to keep going.
Oh, it's getting bigger every year.
And that's it.
But that was something, so often people have been on this podcast, they've been, people born in Ireland who come here for a few years or for their whole lives or whatever. So you've been the one on the other side, experiencing them coming and going, and some people staying. What's that been like as being the person?
Heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. And it doesn't, like, you'd imagine after a while that it would get easier. Sean says you have to just stop making friends with Irish people. So like, if you don't want people to leave you, don't make friends with Irish people. But it's always hard to see people going. And I mean, we're so lucky. We've Skype, aging myself. We'll take that out anyway. We have all these like video chats and all kinds of voice notes and everything else that doesn't really matter how far away you are. You're not really ever that far away. You're always a voice note or a call or a message. And when I was younger, that was definitely not the way. And I still have all these letters that my cousins and Laura and Patricia and a whole bunch of my cousins, we'd actually physically sit down and pen pal write each other. And I still have all of them above in our house. They mean the world to me, even looking back on them now, and all in codes, so that when you'd be talking about boys, nobody else would know. So it was only these secret code names and the likes. And now, sure, I don't know who half of them were from their code names because it's been that long. But that's been lost due to technology. But having the technology makes the absences so much easier. But it's always such a heartache to see everybody go, and it's the same way that family and friends feel whenever people in Ireland leave. And they're like, I'll only be gone for a year or two, but like, you also kind of know that there's a chance that it'll be longer, and everybody comes over for a year or two. I've never ever met anyone that didn't. Like, nobody's ever come over and been like, I'm staying for my whole life. Even my mother only came over for a year, and she was originally supposed to go to Australia. And just
I can't imagine your mother in Australia.
No, neither could I. The woman burns if she looks at the sun. She would have just been a crisp by the end of her first year. But like, it's a bit mad to think about how the tiniest changes, and your whole life could be completely different, And so I think that's the way with a lot of the friends. Like, whenever they come over, whatever brought them here, whatever brings them home or brings them to Australia, or whether it's visa stuff or breakups or whatever else, their lives have this tiny little change, but then the ripple effect of all the people that they've touched since they've been here and all the changes that have happened just because they were here, I think that's kind of incredible. And I don't think that people realize how much of a difference they make just with their presence. I mean, even if you look at our club, if people weren't there, we wouldn't be able to do trainings, we wouldn't be able to have games, we wouldn't, and then, the GAA would kind of fold. So showing up is sometimes one of the most powerful things that you can do.
50% of it, just be there.
100%. And I don't think that people understand, because, sure, it's only me, like, if I'm not there. But if everybody kind of thought that way, then nobody had ever come anywhere. And it makes a big difference, especially as a person who runs things. When you get the crowd, and a lot of the time it's not about the money, it's about the atmosphere, it's about the crowd, it's about the crack, it's about making sure that what you're doing, that the message is getting across, that So when people turn up, it makes such a vast difference. And the same way when people do that, they come to this country and they show up just even for their friends, just going out for a night out or whatever else. They have these stories of you forever, these memories that nobody else has, these special moments that they wouldn't have had that emigration, as long or as short as it was here. And so more than half, we'd say, of my closest friends are back in Ireland. And it sucks and it's awful hard. And it means so much travel whenever we go back. Sean's poor sister Sinead has to be my personal chauffeur. She's so good to me, bringing me around. Can we go to this place? Can we stop off here? Can we do this? And she's always so good to me. Shout out to Sinead if you're listening. But she's great. But it's so hard to try to organise it all. But I wouldn't change it for the world, because some of the memories that we have and some of the times that we shared with them, as heartbreaking as it is that as heartbreaking as it is that they're not here now, like the times that they were here were incredible, you know.
That's a good way of looking at it, because it must be. I have a similar friend to you in Chicago, who's my kind of resident Irish person in Chicago, but was born there, kind of as an Irish accent. Parents are Irish, went to school with other Irish kids and things like that, and she was always complaining about people coming and going and making friends over the summer, even just 3 months. At least you usually get a year or two, but and there's something I want to your ability to express yourself is like, you're actually perfect for a podcast because you're well able to talk. But for writing, so I heard you speak you gave the speech when your mother was awarded the Irish Person of the Year award last year.
Yes.
And you gave an unbelievable speech.
Thank you.
At the event. It was an incredible speech. And I know you obviously had part of it written down, and I could tell from the way you're a good speaker in that you're able to read what you're writing, but obviously what you wrote was also good as well. So can you talk to us a little bit about your writing?
I love writing. I do an awful lot of writing. My brain works faster than I can catch up to it an awful lot of the time.
Not surprised with that.
Yeah. And in school, I had a really hard time getting out a lot of my thoughts and articulating all the stuff that was going on. And whenever I was writing, I was only getting half of what I was thinking down. So nothing ever made sense. When people be reading it, there was words missing, or there, and things that tied the story together. So you could, if you really sat down and focused, you could probably figure it out. But it just wasn't like cohesive. So we went through some training and stuff, and I found out that I have learning disorders. And so
what age were you here when you found out this?
I was 8,
okay.
And at the risk of bringing up my mother again, it sounds like whenever she did her podcast, it was all about flipping me. We'll just do it from now on. We'll just do each other's podcasts. But she was my biggest advocate, because she could see that I was struggling, and it wasn't that I wasn't doing the work. Because I'd go home and they'd be like, "What do you have to do today?" And I would give every excuse in the book to not do the homework, because I hated it. I hated learning because it was hard. And I understood what was happening at the time, but then to try to write it down or to read it back, I could never understand the questions. So I have dyslexia, and I thought, well, that's it. I'm never going to be able to write. I'm never going to do anything. And I worked with incredible teachers who were like, that doesn't mean that you can't write. In fact, it probably means that if you could combat this, you'd be an excellent writer. So we worked for a couple of years and figured out more about the way that my brain works, the way that I can learn better. And I have an auditory learning, so I do better. If somebody says something, I'd remember it far better than if I ever read something. So I can still remember every word of movies and TV shows from whenever I was a child, and I haven't seen them in 35 years. The same way with some of the stuff, that songs, stories, poems, that kind of thing. So when my mother's best friend and former roommate, he was like a grandfather to me, his name was Sean Gorman, and when he passed away I was 12, and that was a really pivotal. It wasn't the first death, because obviously the Irish community is really big. We're very morbid as a people. To be like, do you know who died? It was like, this is a terrible game. But Mammy still plays it all the time with me. Guess who died? It's like, stop being so excited about this. But so I had been to loads of funerals and done the whole rigmarole. But this was the first one that really was a personal loss, and was something that, the first time that I remember being really upset about it. And they gave me the honour of writing a little speech to say at the funeral. And so it was the first time that I was kind of given a responsibility. And that was a huge responsibility, but it was something that I really wanted to do. And again, my brain worked faster, so I said things and Mam wrote it down, and then we read it. And I said, no, that's not 100%, let's do it again. So I worked on it the whole night or 2 nights or something, sitting around the kitchen table with his wife, some of his kids, me and Mam. And by the end of it, I don't remember the speech offhand, but I was able to get up in the church and read it off to everybody. And there's a couple of people at a funeral just this year who said that they remembered me getting up as a small child, and it was the only time that they had ever seen a small child get up and give the eulogy, and how
it's very unusual.
Yeah, but he was such a special man in my life, and I think of him every single day. He was pivotal, and I only had him for 12 years. What I wouldn't have given to have had him for longer. He was an incredible human, but in those 12 years, he gave me a lifetime's worth of knowledge, stories, humour, coping mechanisms. He was an incredible man. And so getting to write for him, he was a school teacher, and he had this enormous brain, this vast amount of knowledge, but he was able to give information at a child-friendly level. So he was able to teach me really big concepts at an age-appropriate level that I was not only able to understand, but also retain. To this day, I still say things in my own class that he used to say, silly little attention grabbers or funny little poems that make the kids kind of go, what? So things like that, he's never not with me. But from that, I realized how important writing was. And after we lost him, there was this really dark kind of an emptiness, and I still had all the rest of the people, and we were still really busy. I was still doing, competitive Irish dancing and doing all these things, and we were super busy, but there was just an emptiness. And I remember talking to one of our teachers who was a counsellor at a school before, and she said, why don't you try writing? And it's like, I don't know, Anna, I don't know what to write. I'm just sad. She was like, I think you'd be surprised. And I started writing. So she gave me homework to just write a poem or two. Just in the week. You don't have to write a lot of it. Just write at least 1 or 2 poems in the week. Turn them in at the end of the week. We'll see how it goes. And she never graded them. She never judged them. She just let me write. And I got a mark for doing it. And then the more poems I did, the more marks I would get. Didn't matter if it was long, if it was short, if it rhymed. We just had to get feelings down on paper. And I'm never so grateful that a teacher stopped and took the time to not pressure, not make me talk, not try to do, but just do something that I was good at, that I didn't know I was good at yet. And so now writing's become my outlet for everything. I have little notes on my phone all the time, different poems or story ideas, and I have 50 or something short stories written. My father-in-law passed away a couple of months ago, and that just tore me up. He was one of my most favorite people on earth, and I couldn't believe whenever we were there that he wasn't there. I just kept waiting for him to come home, and I'd sit up at night and talk to the coffin because my insomnia had kicked in, and so I just had this one-on-one time with him, and it made me think about how much I valued the one-on-one time that I did have with him. And I wrote a little story just about sitting at the kitchen table on my own while everybody else was asleep and thinking back on the funny things he said and the funny things he did. And so just this one act scene of a girl sitting at a table recalling all of these precious times that seemed so normal at the time, and it now just seems so precious.
Yeah, it's a nice way to encapsulate it.
Yeah.
Obviously, this recording will hopefully be available forever, so will that story now that it's written.
Exactly.
Do you type it? Do you like using pen and paper? Do you type?
I kind of do a bit of both. It depends what I'm trying to do. I have to stop talking about it, but I'm doing this novel.
Here
I'm talking about this fucking novel. I've been doing this novel for about 3,000 years, and it'll probably take another 14,000 to be finished. But it is in no way a true story. It is not my autobiography. It's not my story at all. But I'm writing the story about a girl from Louth who moves over to Toronto, gets stuck into the GAA, tries to find her feet, gets like a job trying to navigate like the love life and the party scene and the, you know, the whole, all the bits and bobs of stuff that, by the way, I never had to do, just for remembering I was born here. I just watched that many people have to go through it. And just different stories. Now, some of the stories are loosely based on true stories. Of
course, yeah.
Some of them,
any good fiction.
Yeah, some of them my own, some of them other people's. Most of the good ones are other people's, although there's a couple in there that I can take credit for, though I'll never tell which ones. But there's a lot of lunacy in it, and so I started to tell people, because I was writing. I just put pen to paper and started writing it, and thought, this would be a bit of crack, like, so see. And I honestly just thought it was going to be this fun little short story, and it evolved and evolved and evolved. And so now I think I'm on like 200 pages of a book, but it's hard with my dyslexia. I like doing pen to paper.
Interesting.
I find I can just be more creative, and things just kind of flow more than they do when you're tapping on a keyboard, when you're just like actually letting the words physically flow out of you. It just happens. And so I write never knowing what's going to happen next. Yeah. So I, as I was saying to one of the kids, I write like I talk. I never know how the sentence is going to finish. And myself and Sean were on a train from Limerick to Dublin. Why we were going there, I don't know. But anyway, we were going on something GA or drink related, I'd say. But anyway, we were on the train, and Sean, the minute that we get on anything that moves, he's out for the count. And he won't like me saying this now, because he thinks he doesn't, but he does. And he's not on the podcast, so I can say whatever I like. So he was out for the count, and I was like, right, this is my chance. I'm gonna really knuckle down. I'm gonna get the end of this chapter done. No idea what was going to happen, and I ended up waking him up with crying, and he was like, "Oh my God, Colleen, we're not in Toronto now. You have to stop that now, please. I don't know what's happened, but you need to stop crying. People are looking." Panicked. So anyway, I sat beside him, and he was like, because we were sitting across from each other, and I went and sat beside him, and I was like, "I'm just really upset." He was like, "I can see that, yeah. What happened? Like, what has gotten you this twisted?" And what? The characters in my book, they just broke up, and I'm so upset because I didn't see it coming. And he was like, "What do you mean you didn't see it coming? You're the one writing the book." So when I say I don't know what's going to happen next, I really don't know what's going to happen next. Spoiler alert, if it ever comes out.
You have changed by then anyway.
Yeah, exactly. I might have. But so what had happened was, I had started this over COVID. And it was just a fun, silly, stupid little thing, because I had come into audiobooks at that stage as well. Because reading was always such a struggle for me. And I love hearing stories and stuff, but to actually sit down, my dyslexia still comes with its limitations. So although I can read, I can write, I can, make sense of things, it's a massive challenge. And so when people are like, just reading for fun, I don't have that, because it ends up being so stressful and really takes a lot out of me mentally and physically. Just because nothing is the same, and I have to do all kinds of techniques. The more words are on a page, I have to have a line across so I can only see the sentence that I'm reading, and all kinds of other stuff, which really does help.
It does, but it takes longer.
Exactly.
Yeah, I understand.
And a lot of the time, I'd have to read a sentence a couple of times before I'd fully be able to understand enough to move on to the next one. So it'd take at least 3 or 4 times what it would take a normal person to read a normal book. So it just wasn't fun. And I came into audiobooks because one of the girls, one of my best buddies over here, Lisa from Dublin, she said that she was listening to audiobooks, and I was like, I don't know, it doesn't sound great. And I love them. I'd listen to at least a book a week.
Would you do you think you were going to narrate your own novel whenever it comes out?
No, I really, if my novel comes out, I don't like the sound of my own voice, because it just fills me with, oh my God, is that how I sound? But my cousin Marie, my mammy's niece, is incredible. She can do every accent under the sun, and there's a lot of different, especially Irish accents within the book, and I just think that she'd nail it. So I don't know how it works on Audible if you get to like pick your own people. But if I do, she's my first choice. 100% Maureen Mulvey for the win. She's class. She's unreal. But I just started listening to all these different books, and I thought it was so incredible that you know, depending on your mood, you'd listen to these different ones. So I've listened to, you know, Colleen Hoover's romantic comedies, and I actually saw her on your bookshelf there. Like, yeah, my girl.
I believe Colleen Hoover. No.
Oh, she's class. She's unreal. There's another Colleen that I love as well. Her name is Colleen Coleman, and she's a Mayo girl, and her mammy and my mammy were friends because her mammy emigrated here in the late 70s, but I didn't realise that when I was listening to her book, and then was like, I met her sister and her mother in a pub one of the days, and I was like, I'm actually listening to her book right now. So I came to love it. Audiobooks are sensational. You get self-help books and autobiographies, and I even listened to Sean had this Mike Tyson book that he just brought on holidays. I think that the book's been more places than most people have, but I don't think he's ever finished it. Sorry, Sean. But it was a great picture. He'd be like, take my photo reading the book, and then he'd put the book away once the photo was taken. But I was like, do you know, I wonder what the book is actually like. So I listened to that one. And so I've listened to all kinds of different ones, and I just thought they were so great. So I decided that was it. I was getting stuck into this book now, and that was how I was going to do it. And it was really just supposed to be an ease, like take the pressure off, to get your mind out of this world that was so completely out of our control. And during the pandemic, like, you couldn't see people, you couldn't go places, the whole world had changed. Was it ever going to come back to normal? Like, nothing was in our control. But in my little world that I had created, everything was in my control. Everything that everybody did or said or felt, that was, you know, all powerful. And it gave me a sense of I suppose, power. In a time where there was very little power to have, because everybody was just so scared and controlled by rules and regulations and obviously safety measures, you know. But
I can't wait to read that story. I from living here, obviously, and doing the podcast, I'm always fascinated with people who come here, like that story of this individual and her or his journey to, is it a woman you said?
It's a girl, yeah.
From County Louth. Yeah, I would. That's a great story. It's going to be a great story.
It is, and just like the family dynamics and different things. And so as different things unfold, or I start writing different characters, but what happened, because I tend to be a blabbermouth at the best of times, was I was so excited that I was talking to people about this book. And then people were like, well, when's the book coming out? I want to read the book. When's the book happening? And I was posting pictures of me writing. And people would be like, when's the book coming? And then I started to put pressure on myself to be like, I have to get it finished, because, you know, if it's not this Christmas, it should be the following Christmas, and I should get. And then it stopped being a mental health thing that was going to help me and to, you know, give me my control back and give me my power back. And it became something. It was just another job that I was doing, and another thing that I had to finish, and another obligation. And it kind of stopped being fun for a while. And just trying to get myself to do it, I was forcing myself to do it. And if I force myself to write, it's not the same quality of work. Where when I sit down and I just write because something's in my head or something's happened, you know, it's very different. So I said I've now gone back to, it'll come out whenever it comes out.
Exactly.
It may never come out. I might just, you know, write it and have a copy or two and lend it out to friends, or, you know, I don't know if I'll ever kind of finish it and sell it, but I love writing the story, and I really love the characters, and they're all so dynamic. Like, when I'm reading them, I can almost picture them in my head, or I can, you know, so I'm not crazy. I don't actually think they're real, but, you know, whenever I'm writing them, they are real, and you know, the way that they think and feel and how things happen. And I write about different places within Toronto, and you know, I talk about Centennial Park at the pitch and stuff. So if you're a GAA person, you'd be able to connect with that, or, you know, different subway stops and different, you know, landmarks and hospitals and, you know, different things. And so I think it's just nice, because a lot of the time whenever you watch, you know, American TV or whatever, you'd know like the Upper West Side and all these
we all know how New York geographically works.
Well, and that's it. I could be dropped in the middle of New York and get around, no bother, like, because I've seen so many shows, and I just think it's kind of nice to have that for Toronto, and have those places be like, oh, I know where that is. That's class. So that I think is kind of unique and special to it then as well. But it's definitely, it's gone through ebbs and flows of the writing process. And because I do pen to paper, then I have to transcribe it into the computer, doing talk to text, and I don't know about anybody else, but talk to text is not like the ever-changing sounds that come out of me. So nothing ever, in the talk to text, it's never actually the way that it's supposed to sound. And so then I have to, so I'd email that, I do a talk to text. There's got to be an easier way. If anybody's out there knows an easier way, please let me know. So I write it down on the paper, and then I have to talk to text it to an email, like to myself. And then I go from the email to like put it into Word then. Because the one that I had for Word, I was trying to do it and it just didn't have a clue what I was talking about. So that didn't work. So the email and then I have to get them to read it to me so I can like stop it and be like, nope, that wasn't right. Nope, that wasn't right. And so it ends up taking like 100 million years, where if I was just doing straight into the computer, like, it'd be so much easier. But I did have one massive hiccup, and I found out that, because I was looking for my book, and I wanted to get some of the stuff that I had written in. I'm looking high and low. Corbett saying, I don't know, I haven't seen it in a while. Are you sure you didn't bring it to work? I'm saying, no, I have no idea. Like, I know I don't ever leave this out of my sight. It's my prized possession, like. So we're looking everywhere. We're looking for a good month now, and I'm starting to get really panicked. And Sean, we were up in McMurphy's, and he had a drink or two taken, and just one or two, Sean would be very sensible like that. And he ended up confessing that he had brought the notebook, my notebook with all of my writing in it, to his office and had lost it. I was raging. I was so mad. I contemplated divorce. I was raging with him. So I had to kind of start the whole thing all over again, from kind of a halfway point. So that really held up production. But the second time, it was kind of interesting because I sort of knew what was going to happen and where they were going to go and what they were feeling. I knew what I had done the first time around. So writing it the way that a typical writer would write, like where there's a thought process and there's things outlined, it was very different the second time round, getting a chance to write it. No, it was still loads of fun, but it just wasn't I wasn't being hit so off guard with the stuff. I kind of knew, and so I was able to write it a little bit more coherently and a little bit quicker because I kind of already had an idea of what they were going to do. Now, it's not exactly the same. Things kind of changed and my thoughts on different things changed. So it's not like an exact copy of the first time round. But I kind of liked the rewrite, and I just thought it was really interesting to have most of the book be whatever comes up, and have this one kind of hunk of it be really like well thought out, and having that chance to write from both perspectives, I thought was kind of interesting then as well.
I'm looking forward to it. I love writing as well, so I totally resonate. But from the fictional life of this woman from County Louth to your real life, you said you're happy here in Toronto. You're happy to be Irish in Toronto and not be Irish anywhere else for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, it's a place that it's home. Yeah. It's a place where I make sense in a world where I don't make sense very many places.
I like that. Good, you might leave it, that's all.
Yeah,
thanks,
lovely.
Really hope you enjoyed that chat with Colleen. She was full of her usual energy and was extremely honest throughout. I wish her the best, and I'm looking forward to reading that novel when it is finally done. Once again, all feedback is welcome. You can email me. My email address is in the description of the podcast, or you can find me on social media. It's lovely getting messages from strangers and talking about the podcast and their stories of what brought them to Toronto. I would still encourage people to download the episodes and to share them with friends and family. Downloads are the easiest indicator for me to gauge how many people I'm reaching with these conversations, so I would really appreciate it. Thanks to Natalie Barbuzzi, who provided the logo for the podcast, and thanks to Shannon Heaton, who provided the music you are now listening to. You'll find all of her music on Spotify. There'll be another episode of Irish in Toronto in 2 weeks, and until then, slán go fóill.